Call the August 1st, 2011 Board of Commissioners work session to order at this time. Before each one of us, we have the agenda for today. I would ask that if you could look over it, and if there is a motion to approve the agenda as is with a motion to transfer the consent agenda over to our August the 15th consent agenda, I'd ask you for you to consider that.
I make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. The first matter we have today is actually the update on the Q scabs. I don't know if Mr. Whitkey. That is on page 23 of our agenda. Can you tell us how we're doing on what's going on with the Q scabs?
I'm hoping you all have a document that you can pull up. Yes. In case as we do.
Okay.
The report is very similar to what you've seen in the past. The changes that we've made are more colorful. Thank you. What's indicated in green areas or blocks are items that have changed in the budget due to bidding or changes in fee, depending on scope changes in the projects. And let me explain briefly. With Beverly Hills Elementary School, that's a replacement of classroom windows with hurricane-resistant glazing as required by fire code. And it came in much higher than budgeted. The price of materials, as we're beginning to see, are starting to rise. So the budget was not adequate. We decided, and I should explain also, we bid Beverly Hills and the renovations to Culture and Web for the magnet school program at the same time, and actually the same contractors bid both projects. And we came in low on the Culture and Web project, and as I just mentioned, we came in high on Beverly Hills project. So our board suggested taking the money from Culture and Web to pay for the additional costs for the windows at Beverly Hills because there were adequate funds in Culture and Web. So that's the first two changes that you see on the first two lines in the green block is a reflection of those changes of monies.
How do we know that it came in under budget when this shows the construction budget for Culture and Web of $96,242 and Beverly Hills of $66,600? How do we know that came in under and over budget?
We could add a column that shows you the bid lines. I mean the bid costs. Okay. That would probably, I mean, outside of my telling you, I guess, okay. Hoping you believe me. At this point, you don't know that, sir. And so that's a good point. We'll add a column that at least explains what the bid cost was for each project as it comes in.
Or if you just want to do I ask the commissioners, if you do a positive or negative, red negative knows that it's under budget by $10,000, or black number is it's over budget by $10,000, as so that we can look at that, and unless we want to each do quick math as to what's budget is versus what was. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Or I mean, if it's over, we could put it in deficit parentheses, something like that,
and that way we could just get a quick glance and see.
Sure, that's a good idea. Okay. And so, and to the far right is a blue blue blocks, which indicate a change in the project status. So we've from the bidding, we've now moved to construction, and both of those projects are in the construction phase. As we go down the line a little bit, you'll see the Performance Learning Center, which is at at J.N. Freeze Middle School. That work was bid. We had a change in fee because originally, and this goes back, I'll ask you to think back a few months when I was explaining that project to you. We were talking about the fact that we were going to modify an existing, or excuse me, repave an existing parking lot instead of doing the new parking lot. That work, because of the nature of the design and all, was not included as part of the initial fee negotiation with the architect. So this fee has been modified, and thus the construction budget shown reduced.
Why wasn't it part of the original architecture and engineer fees?
Because we thought we were going to do it as two completely separate projects at different times.
Okay.
And when we decided to bid it together, we had to pay them the additional monies to get those documents completed.
So it's the same architect for both projects?
Yes, that's correct. And again, the project is within budget, but it doesn't reflect that. I mean, there's no way that you would know that other than my telling you that.
Okay.
So we'll sort out a way to make that clearer in the future. And that project is also under construction. As you move down the list, no work so far on mechanical plumbing. I mean, all of them are in design, but nothing going out to bid just yet. J.N. Free's roof replacement is also in design. When we get down to the food service improvements towards the bottom of the page, we did have an unfortunate occurrence this afternoon. I was hoping to bring you good news about those bids, and as it turned out, all the bidders except one withdrew their bids. And
Was
withdrew
Withdrew.
their bid. They did not bid, I should say. They didn't withdraw them. We had one bidder that submitted a bid out of the 4 that were at the mandatory pre-bid conference. So our consultant at this point is trying to figure out what went wrong, why they chose not to bid. Sometimes it has to do with too short a time span for bidding. Other times it's just that they don't feel comfortable with the suggested completion dates for the project. Those are all things that we'll find out. We are going to rebid the project hopefully within the next 2 weeks. And if these folks won't compete, hopefully we'll find other bidders who will. So, and we'll bring that back next month. And then the last set of projects is the Information Technology Group, and the project that we're bidding again this afternoon, I do not have results on that, is the servers, switches, wireless, and wiring for J.N. Free's middle school's projects, or school rather, and we will have results of that bidding for you at next month's update.
Is that not something we could do internally? I mean, if we're talking about just wireless, it would seem like we could do that internally, or wiring. I didn't think wiring was that difficult, and I thought that staff would have the ability, or would have the ability to do the wiring.
And we've asked that question of Department of Public Instruction. The comment back from them has been that the whole essence of the QSCB and the federal stimulus monies were to employ folks within the community to do this work, and as such we're required not only to hire designers to design this work, but also contractors to install.
Okay.
And it is what we're doing. I can't disagree with your thoughts, Mr. Chairman, but it is the nature.
It just doesn't work that way when we're dealing with the federal government.
Based on our instructions from the federal government.
Okay.
So.
Any questions for Mr. Whitkey? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
First under new business is Project Blade. I think that's going into, is that closed session, Mr. McDaniels? Okay. And, okay. And let's see here. Gold as well? Okay. Item G3, which is the cost savings from the Harvest Facility project through self-financing. Mrs. Dubois?
Yes. For the Harvest Facility, we need to incorporate a wastewater system. We were unable to obtain any grants to fund this particular part of the project. It is estimated to cost about $350,000. With a loan, if we were to go out for this, at a 4% interest would cost the county approximately $160,000. It is being suggested that fund balance be appropriated to be used to finance this portion of the cost. Currently, we're earning under 1% interest rate, so it would be a substantial savings for the county over the long term. and that it's also part of the agreement that's in the next agenda item, that a surcharge be added to the processing fee to pay back that loan with the cruise meets. It's on page 242 of your agenda today, section number 7, and that processing fee would be added per transaction that goes through this facility to pay the $350,000 back. Also, if we were to obtain any additional loans or, grants from someone else in the near future, we would apply that against the loan outstanding. So it's a recommendation of the county manager that we make a fund balance appropriation to cover this cost and to have ourselves repaid back the processing fee over the term. That's not been actually established, but as far as just utilizing the processing fees to pay that loan back.
How much is the surcharge, processing surcharge? Do you know?
It's not listed in the contract.
Yeah, it's not been established yet. We don't know exactly how much the wastewater system is going to cost. And then once we establish that cost, we'll be able to back into that and see what is a tolerable amount for the cruises to add on to their per pound fee now, and to make it so that they're still competitive in the market. So that'll probably be something that needs to come back to you guys when we do that. So once we get a final number on what that system is.
Any other questions?
What was this cost not put in the original contract? Did we go through this in June or whenever it was? I thought the whole amount was available at that time.
No, sir. What was brought to the board before was just the building itself. And that's what the grant money was covering, was the construction of the building. And the last time that I believe the last time it came before the board, it was just for the building, simply because we knew the system was going to have to go in, but there was no money at that time to pay for it. And we were still waiting on some answers back from several different agencies on potential grants.
Was this brought up before? I don't remember this being brought up before.
I'm not sure. I can't answer that.
I don't remember it being brought up before, Commissioner Burridge. I do remember that, I remember that there were grants outstanding to cover certain aspects of the project. I'm not certain what those grants were to cover, but I know that some of the grants did not come back. So it would be my assumption that one of those grants was to cover the wastewater, and when that grant did not come forward or did not get allowed, then the question is could this be paid, or how could this be constructed? And I think that's where we are today. But I don't remember specifically this aspect of it coming before us. You're correct. Commissioner CARRUTH?
Yeah, I just the concept is good because we're not borrowing the money from a bank. We're basically banking on ourselves to do this and getting paid back. I think that also looking at it in a bigger picture of things, of an economic development financing seminar I went to last year at the School of Government, I thought it was interesting that one of the things they talked about there were micro loans for businesses, setting up a loan fund. And I think this is in some ways kind of I see this as kind of a demonstration of how something like that could occur for smaller companies, entrepreneurs in our county, in certain areas, if we wanted to eventually set up something where we would be able to set seed money into it, and it would be paid back into that to, in lieu of something we can help small businesses who may not qualify for our incentive grants that we have. So program that we have. But anyway, this is just I think something good to look at. How do we, maybe do this again in the long term, for other projects.
Any other questions? The number that we're talking about in regards to the surcharge, well, first off, the $350,000, if it costs less than that, then obviously we're not going to loan more than what it's going to cost. And the interest rate that we'd be charging would be to cover our costs, so that it's a wash in regards to the county. If it costs us 3% to finance the loan, then we're certainly going to charge 3% to the creditor, or excuse me, to the debtor.
I did not see that implication on the agenda item, but that is something that can be considered.
I mean, we don't want to take advantage of who we're loaning the money to, but at the same time, we don't want to be taken advantage of, so it needs to be a wash no matter what it is. And then in regards to the surcharge, is if it's going to be X number of dollars per pound, and if we just do an average cost on, or average amount of poundage that's going to be done, we can figure out how long that note's going to be. And if they exceed that, then it certainly would be, it would certainly be paid off sooner. And if for some reason they hit a hiccup, then, you know, whatever we have surplus or the cycle, we'll average it out.
And we can definitely get the interest rate that would be applicable in the market today if the board does approve
Right.
it, and assess that to that.
Okay, I just think it needs
So
to
that
be.
we can pay ourselves back with the equivalent market rate.
Right.
So in the contract, cruise meets will collect this fee and then in turn turn it over to the county to pay for the debt, I guess. I think
That
it's
was my
certainly-
understanding from
Yeah,
that item.
okay. Right. I think it's certainly a smart idea to save that, the interest money. I think it's a smart idea to use the balance to pay this, and I think it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Any other questions? Do we have a motion? We have a motion to, since it's a budget amendment, do we have to call for a public hearing?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Does this want to be on the consent agenda for the 15th? We have a motion to place this under the consent agenda from Commissioner Poole. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion?
And we will add the applicable market rate as of the, is it the 15th of August?
15th is when we're going to
Okay.
have our meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next matter that we have is the management agreement.
Yeah, this is, again, the same structure. This is an agreement between the county and Cruz Meats, Mr. Cruz and his sons, that part of the process is that they would agree to purchase the equipment that goes into the plant and maintain that equipment throughout its life, to maintain the structure itself and the grounds around it in an acceptable manner, and then also pay all of the utilities related to their business on site. Therefore, we are, in a sense, leasing the property to them, and they are taking on all expenses after that. And that agreement is in place. Rich and myself and Mr. Day visited with the cruisers. We've got, they have agreed to these terms, and then Mr. Cook finalized that agreement in place. The reason that we need this, again, is to make sure that there is something. These are the terms that were agreed to between the county and the cruises. We just wanted to put it in writing to make sure it was there for everybody, so that it was enforceable. The other need for this document as well, if the board so chooses, this document, the contract with J.D. Goodrum, who is the contractor to build the facility, we will not issue a notice to proceed until this contract is signed. So if you choose, you can, if you would waive your rules, you could approve it tonight, and therefore we could issue the notice to proceed tomorrow and get started, or we can wait until your regular meeting, and then we just won't, it'll save a couple of weeks on construction time, so.
Okay. How long will construction time take approximately?
Kyle, have you got an estimate? 6 months, 180 days.
Is that, okay.
And that agreement's on page 240 of your agenda. It's an addition to the agenda.
That's within, that's still well within the constraints of the state's extension on the grant money, so the 2 weeks.
1 year extension.
Yeah, we had a 1 year extension, so we're still well within there. If you choose to just wait till your regular meeting, that's fine.
So how long will the county own this
Rich,
building?
I'll
Is
let
it?
you answer that one.
Well, it actually varies, and part of it has to do with the $350,000 that is for the wastewater treatment facility that goes behind the plant. It's a 15-year agreement, and basically the way it works is that the Cruz family agrees to operate this facility in behalf of the county and take care of all the expenses out of the revenues of the operation. And the amount that the county has invested in that building is actually amortized over that 15-year period evenly. So for every year that they operated, it reduces that balance that presumably would be owed to the county, which is secured by a deed of trust on the real estate, which is owned by the Cruz family. It amortizes it down equally over that 15-year period. What happens, though, is it can be shortened to 10 years if the $350,000 for the wastewater treatment facility can be either paid through the surcharge or paid through some grant monies that the county is going to apply for. But in any event, if that occurs and that part is amortized separately or paid separately, then if they operate it for 10 years, then the facility essentially would become theirs at that point. There's a ground lease there will be a ground lease from the Cruz family to the county. The county will own the facility. They will operate it on their property, and basically that's the setup for the facility. One other thing with reference to that wastewater, part of the problem with trying to determine the surcharge is we don't really have that much of an idea right now as to what kind of how much they're going to be able to generate in terms of revenues, how much meat is going to be processed through it. We expect it to ramp up over a period of time, and then once the facility has been in operation for several years, expect it to be fully utilized at that point. But it's hard to determine that right now. I haven't seen any projections on what it will generate.
So after 10 or 15 years, give or take, then the Cruz family will own the facility. Is that correct?
They will own the facility.
Okay. And just what so happens, and hopefully not, what happens if they go out of business within 10 years?
Well, the county, as part of the agreement, the county will have a lien on the real estate, so that if they aren't able to carry the agreement through to term, or if there's some default in the course of the term of the agreement, then the county could foreclose its lien and basically take the land and the facility. So that for them, since this is family land, it's about 15 acres on which the facility and the wastewater treatment part will be located. There's certainly a considerable incentive for them to fulfill their obligations under the agreement and to operate the facility. And again, the county will not have any additional outlays with reference to the operations of it. Part of the agreement is that they're required to pay all the expenses. They hire the personnel to operate the facility. They pay the utilities. They pay for all the supplies. They pay for the maintenance and repair on the building that belongs to the county. So basically, it becomes their operation. But say the county security in this for its investment is that it will have not only the ownership of the facility itself, but also a lien on the land and the equipment that the cruises are buying directly. That's part of the agreement as well. They actually are buying all the equipment.
Any other questions for Mr. Cook?
I do. Did you talk to them today to finalize and make sure that they were okay with the agreement?
John and Mike and I spoke with them, what was it, last Wednesday?
Wednesday a week.
Wednesday a week ago.
Yeah.
And the way we left it, they had actually been over the agreement. They had asked some questions at that time about what the different provisions meant. And the way it was left is that if they had any further questions, that they would contact either me or Mike. And they have not contacted me. I don't think they've contacted Mike either. But they were happy with the structure of it, and were, I think, satisfied with an understanding of the terms.
Okay. Well, based on the requested action, it says that we need to hold a public hearing. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay. So then we couldn't approve it today
That's
because
right.
we need to have
That's
a public
right.
hearing. And the only reason I asked if you talked to them is that I was out there on Saturday and asked them, and I was under the impression that they were finishing, looking over it and making sure. So you may want to place a call and just make sure that they've finished up. I presume that they would have an attorney look at any agreement, so, and just make sure that everything's good. I mean, they were, well, I talked to two of them, and they were, you know, quite excited, and they were starting to move some power lines and some stuff like that. So, I mean, I know that they were proceeding with it and everything. But that was the impression I had, is that they were, their attorney, or they were, I think they were very close to deciding, but wouldn't hurt to.
Yeah, I'll give them a call
Double check,
tomorrow.
but-
It was my understanding that they were supposed to contact us if they had any problems, and they did not contact us. So.
Yeah, that's the way it was.
Well, if we're going to call for a public hearing, then
Yeah,
it would
exactly.
be good for us to contact them. So
Yep.
I would make a motion to put it on the agenda for new business, since we have to call for a public hearing.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Just for everybody to be aware of, I have helped the cruises on some matters, it has nothing to do with this whatsoever. I'm not certain that the firm has helped on this matter or not. I will check when I get back to the office, but I don't think so. I don't see how my representation of the cruises in another issue, it has no relationship, again, it has no relationship whatsoever. So if I do find out that somebody in our office has talked to them about this contract, then I will certainly bring it to the board's attention.
Mr. Chairman, I am not aware of your firm being involved in any way.
I don't either, but, you know, again, I will once again check to make certain that there's no question whatsoever. We have a motion to place this under new business. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next matter we have is page 79, and it's the old jail demolition reconstruction project. Mr. Downs.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bilafer.
Sorry.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's actually Mr. Downs. Sheriff
Yeah, I'll
Downs.
introduce it, and if you have any technical questions, then Mr. Bilafer can answer those. But there was an RFQ sent out for this project. That is for the demolition of the current jail, design some upfit on a portion of that jail that will remain, and then also design the reconnection or the closing up of the courthouse that will be caused by the demolition of the old jail. As a result of the RFQ, there were several firms that submitted their proposals and their qualifications. After reviewing those submittals, Griffin Architecture was selected because of their extensive experience. They designed the courthouse themselves. They've done all of our upfit work in the courthouse, all the way up to just recently finishing the remodeling of the courtroom, number 6?
Correct.
Courtroom number 6. So they're familiar with the entire building, all of the inner workings, and it's going to be some pretty delicate work as we take some of that down and then try to reconnect it. And the utilities are running throughout that building, the old jail, and they're back and forth, and plus the elevator shaft is serving both buildings as well. So it's going to be a pretty tricky process. So what we're asking for you to do tonight is, or today, this month, is to approve Griffin Architecture. Their proposed contract is attached. It is for the amount of $110,000 plus $3,500 in potential reimbursables. That is not only his design fee, but this work is going to require a tremendous amount of engineering work, both structural, electrical, and plumbing. So those fees are included in that, in Mr. Griffin's fees as well. So we can answer any questions. Again, if there's any technical questions as far as the process, Mr. Bilafer can answer those for you. He's been passionately involved in this project.
Any questions for Mr. Downs or Mr. Bilafer? Commissioner Meisner?
Have all the inmates been moved out of the old jail?
Yes. Currently, the air conditioning is set on a normal temperature of about 80 degrees, and everything else has been cut off in there, the water. Most of the plumbing and electrical systems through the old part of the jail that you look at from these windows is in pretty bad shape. So immediately when we could shut it off, we started saving some money on utilities.
And what portion of the old jail is going to be upfitted?
There is, on the second floor, if you're familiar with the office where the glass doors are right here at the back where Sheriff Riley's office used to be, from there towards the courthouse will remain intact, and from there back will be what's missing, or which will be taken away. This is going to provide some space on the second floor that'll be remodeled. All of the cells that are in those areas, or except for the 2 holding cells, will stay intact for the courts. But everything else will be removed, and it will be transitioned into storage space for the clerk of courts and the DA's office as well, which is much needed because if you've been through there in a while, there's stacked boxes everywhere. So on the street level will be additional offices for the court security. Will have an office in there as well, which they desperately need. And then also, there's currently some offices already existing in there with the probation and parole. So there'll be a couple more offices available for them as well to go into.
The old jail is actually 2 buildings. So right where Sheriff Riley's office used to be, you can't tell, but there's an actual about an 18-inch separation that's covered with brick. So we're literally cut down that and be able to do that.
What is there a rush to get it done now? And the reason why I say is not knowing what the legislature's mood is as to the having to have counties house misdemeanants. Do we not keep this facility, at least keep the structure of that building up right now? And then if we need to, we can remodel that if we need to as a cost savings as opposed to.
Well, there's a couple. This project also includes the redesign once that building is gone for surface parking out there. So there would be a secure parking lot in there for all the courts, the judges and the ADAs and the court personnel, and some public parking. So if that's delayed, then that parking availability is delayed as well. The current jail, and I'll let Mr. Bilafer speak a little bit more on it, but the current jail, the utilities, as far as the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing in there are pretty much shot. They're out of code. Plumbing and electrical are probably well below code. And as far as remodeling, it would be pretty much ripping the systems out and starting again. So the cost to do that versus new construction or somewhere else will be pretty high, but I'll let you elaborate on that a little bit.
Mr. Downs is correct. We would have to gut the entire plumbing chases out. We can't continue to operate like that. Too much has been put down those drains, and pretty much most of them are eaten away. So we would have some serious major renovations. Another thing to consider is the only reason we were allowed to get away with a lot of the DHHS violations in there is they knew we were building the new jail.
I'm not saying, I mean, would the cost of upfitting that, the long haul, be less expensive than building a brand new building somewhere else to cover the same amount of beds?
I think it would probably be less expensive to build new because you would have to take out all those cell blocks. You would literally have to take out all that dooring system, and it goes about 18 inches below grade. So
Okay.
meaning the cell doors are buried 18 inches, if not more, below the concrete, both on first and second floor. The problem with those doors, and you know that some of the cells there don't work now, and that's why we don't have, or we did not have inmates in them, is because any of those locking mechanisms are no longer made. In fact, we look to make a pretty good amount of money by selling what's left in there to a few of the counties that still actually use those mechanisms.
Okay.
So no, I don't. To get that number of beds in sheer size, you would have to go in there, and I couldn't even imagine the amount of gutting and how you would have to do it to get the metal cell parts out of there.
Now, is the old emergency management or EOC, emergency operating system, under the long haul or the short haul? And what I'm trying to get at is, if it is, do we benefit in, are we going to have to just fill in that space, the below ground space with dirt, or is it better to try and have some parking down there or some storage down there with parking on top if the EOC and the is down there?
It's under short haul. And
It's
no,
on the short haul,
we're
okay.
not touching it, and that was one of the reasons of not taking down the old part of the jail.
Okay.
Was because it shares a party wall with the
Okay.
courthouse, so you would literally have an open part of the courthouse if you did that.
What I'm talking about is the jail is configured sort of like an L, with the side going from Corbin to Main Street is a short haul, and from the courthouse out is the long haul. So that's the difference, is that the long haul is what's getting getting torn down.
That's correct. Yeah.
Or is contemplated being torn down.
Right.
How do we know, or is there a way to capture what we sell out of that building to offset the cost of the tearing down and the resurfacing? I know that you will account for it, is it at the end of this being done, how do we know?
Our intent is to recycle or salvage everything possible in there, and then we'll be able to track it through documentation.
Okay, so at the end of the
we can get you a
project,
pretty
we'll
good
be
number back.
we can have a presentation that says it cost X number of dollars to tear down, we're able to salvage Y, and this is what the true cost was?
Right, I think so, and some of the realized savings would actually be a lower cost than the demolition, because I would imagine that the demolition contractor is going to probably want a lot of that material.
We've already met with several demolition contractors about 2 years ago when this kind of got tasked to us to try to take a look at it and what it would be. You know, we achieved about an 87% recycle on the old fairgrounds, and I think that we'll get that, if not more, based on the sheer amount of brick and metal in there. Our biggest part is if I can cut that metal out, or if I'm going to have to tear it out because of how deep it is. Those cells are just, that's really what, I'm not sure how much I can get on a good recycling rate with the actual cell doors being covered in concrete. But yes, that will all be tracked, and that's every demolition contractor we've shown it to has actually seen the value in that.
And then how do we make certain that we don't have any creepage in regards to storage, that things that are being placed in storage is greater than what needs to be kept?
That's an excellent question, Mr. White. We have asked in the past many times, both the clerk of court's office and the district attorney's office, to try and purge as much as possible what they don't need, and sometimes with good results, and sometimes not so good results. So that is going to be part of the process. Is once again requesting the purging and not relocate anything that is not required for them to keep.
In regards to the holding cells, because actually I count 3 holding cells over there. You
I
got
believe that may
2
be-
behind the
that's
metal,
correct. Yeah.
the solid metal door, and then you got with the bars. So
Right.
you got 3 holding cells. My belief is that the sheriff's department is probably going to work with the district attorney's office to actually use those holding cells. With people being in those holding cells, are we looking at an added expense for security of clerk's office files and DA's office files, or are they going to be stored in another area so that they don't have access to it?
The way we've designed it, sir, we have a completely different path in there, and it'll be completely secure. There will never be an intermingling of anybody that works in the courthouse and any type of inmate or courthouse security.
And also the people that are being in the holding cells won't have access to
No, s-
the files or whatever is being stored?
No, sir.
And we're not looking at extra security costs to store them in that facility?
Physical bodies, when you say security costs?
Well, either electronic door pads or, right now it's just behind a lock and key.
No,
Where the DA's office is storing their extra files.
There will be some blocking up of a couple entrances
Okay.
we have to do, and there will be card readers for not for the security of someone else getting in there, but so we can track, or somebody can track whoever from the clerk of courts is going in those file rooms.
Or the DA's office?
Or the DA's office, that's correct.
Okay.
And also, there will be now card readers on the exterior of the building when you would leave the secure parking lot, so that we can basically stop any type of pedestrian from getting in the part of the courthouse you look at from this side, which, as you know, is kind of a big fear of ours. So we basically
Fear of who?
of folks being able to just wait in that one vestibule on the Corbin side and get in. So
Okay.
now we can force all the public to actually have to go through the front doors.
or whoever does not have a card reader.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I think that whenever they look at designing the parking, we heard at our last meeting, a very big need for public parking for people that are having access to the new sheriff's building. And also, so I'd ask that be taken into consideration, because there's plenty of parking right now over there. I don't know why there needs to be more parking for additional personnel.
It's already in there. If you're
Okay.
talking adjacent from the sheriff's admin, so what would be the small little Corbin lot, we do have some.
Will that be expanded for?
It wouldn't, preliminary plans, it's not expanded, but it does free up some of the other public spaces that we have that are reserved for court personnel.
Okay, well, I think that whenever Mr. Griffin or Griffin Architects finishes their design, I think it'd be important for the commissioners to look at to see, is there enough parking for the public, as opposed to the secure parking for people that are concerned about being approached by the public.
Right.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to place this? We can place it under consent agenda, we can do a new business.
Do a new business.
We have a motion under
Second.
for new business. We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the approval of matching incentive grants as it relates to the Parks Department. Mrs. Strong.
Good afternoon. As you can see from the information that was provided on the agenda request, incentive grant application requests started in May through June 15th, and this year we had $75,000 worth of requests for our $50,000 at our June Park Commission meeting. This is the funding amount that was requested. Harrisburg so graciously said, we will take a cut if there has to be a cut, so, because all of the needs were so great. Most of them were, as you can see, through PTOs around some of the various schools. But Harrisburg said because we had such a large project that we would take the cut to knock it down to $50,000, and that's what you have before you. The request with the $50,000 that we have approved in the budget, and a request for approval in budget amendments as necessary.
Any questions for Mrs. Strong? Why are we giving any money to Harrisburg Youth Association when that's not a Cabarrus County park?
It is one of our youth associations. They play under our umbrella.
But isn't that Harrisburg Youth Association is the city of Harrisburg
That is correct.
Organization?
It is a, yes.
If it's the
That-
city of Harrisburg organization, why is the county providing money for a city organization?
That's part of our guidelines. They fall within our guidelines. We do that with Kannapolis, Concord,
Okay.
all of the, same thing with the schools.
How much are they receiving from the city of Harrisburg?
I have no idea.
Okay. Any other questions?
So on that one, is that located at Harrisburg Elementary School?
No, that's the one on Harrisburg Town Park,
Okay,
That's on
behind the
Stallings Road.
library.
Oh, behind the library?
behind the library, okay.
Sims Parkway.
And are their total project cost, obviously there's a difference there, are they going to cut what they're doing? Are they going to raise more money to?
They're going to raise more money and work with Harrisburg, the town. One of the aldermen, town council had already talked about trying to see if they couldn't come up with some money to go in there for the deficit.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to place this under consent agenda or new business?
Move place it on consent agenda?
We have a motion for consent agenda. We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next we have is the 7th floor upfit project, selection of an architectural design firm. That is page 154.
Okay, this is the project that the board approved several months ago. This is the upfit of the 7th floor of the Sheriff's Administration Office for the purposes of creating some flexible classroom or instructional space for the community college and their BLET / and their paramedic programs, as well as for some additional instructional space that for the Sheriff's Department as well. So all of the space would be designed as flexible space, and those designs, once they're created, would come back to you as a board to review and offer comments and instruction on how you would like us to proceed. There was, again, the RFQ was, the request for qualifications was publicized with 10 packages being submitted from various architectural firms, and that list of 10 was narrowed to 3, and then a committee of county staff as well as Rowan Cabarrus Community College staff interviewed those final 3 candidates last week. And as a result of that meeting, Griffin Architecture was selected or recommended to the board for your approval as well, for that job as well.
Any questions for Mr. Downs?
Yeah.
Commissioner Meisner?
Looking down through the packet for the summaries, there's no information of the cost and what was involved. How was the Griffin?
There's when you send out an RFQ, you're not allowed to ask for a cost. You select a firm based on their qualifications. Once they are selected or approved by the board, then we would go back and negotiate a cost of their design work. And depending on the amount of that proposal that they send back to us, it would need to, either the manager can sign off on it, or it would need to come back to you as a board for approval. But right now, in fact, the meeting was just last Friday, right? Yeah, Friday morning. So things are flying by here. But there's been no other time other than notification of Mr. Griffin that he was the one that was going to be recommended this evening. There has been no further discussion on any type of proposal. And we've not really even done any kind of preliminary schematics or anything to even talk about what for him to even know what the space needs to look like yet.
Okay.
So.
Once the architect makes up the design, then we will work with a contractor, or we'll put out an RFP for contractor.
Our intentions, we still, Turner Construction is still under contract with us, so we can just amend that contract and keep them on board. They're still on site. While there's only 1 or 2 of them still left over there, they're still performing some punch list items and some changes over there as well. So they're still under contract with us.
Okay.
Not to get into just the gory details of the interview process, but I know, one of the things with Griffin with the jail was their experience with the courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
Was any, were Bonsall, was they any competitive there, any consideration given them based on the fact they had, even though I know it was a very politically charged time when the jail was being designed, when how did they come out? And as far as
they were one of the submittals, and based on just experience, and when you send in your qualifications, it's not only just experience with the building, but it's also some of the experience with our staff working with them throughout the process and how responsive they are to various questions, to various problems, or some various omissions that were in the plan, and how responsive were they to go back. And then overall, the overall design, were we happy with the 100% happy with the design? So.
Okay.
Based on all those criteria, they did not make it to the top 3.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is there a pleasure to go to the consent agenda or the new business?
Make a motion to place under consent.
We have a motion to place this under consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Page 159 is our next matter of business, which is the presentation of the schedule of values. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Wiesner. Do we need to take a short break to get everything set up? No. Okay. Why don't we take about a 5-minute break?
For anybody that would like their cake, please come have some cake.
Yeah, it is,
Before you
Commissioner.
leave, or
I believe it is Commissioner Poole's birthday
No, I
today.
can take it home with me. I'm not worried about y'all, whether y'all eat it or not.